Hello there, welcome back to the Smell of Life channel. I am Ramona, and today's Reddit story is going to be about paranormal work stories. There's going to be a series of these, so I hope you guys are going to enjoy them. But let's get into it. Ready? Story 1. This was about 10 years ago when I worked in retail. I was sitting on the floor of the stockroom sorting out a delivery box full of overstock and spread it out in the middle of the room. Out of nowhere, I heard a long, obnoxious, loud whistle directly over my right shoulder, straight past my ear. Nobody else was there. Way too close to be a phone. No other electronics that could have caused such a human-sounding noise, especially not that close to me. Working in a different store, I once had a pound coin randomly hit me on the top of the head while cashing up, like someone had forcibly thrown it directly above me. Again, nobody else was there. A tiny stockroom so that it could have only fit one person in there anyway, and there was absolutely no reason for any cash to be anywhere but the office desk or in my purse. That instance was actually caught on CCTV. My assistant manager saw the footage, and when I told him what happened, he refused to go into that room after that. Muggins here still had their cash up, with nobody else in the storeroom, though, of course. Story 2. I worked at a store right next to an old railroad system. All of my old co-workers would experience some really wild stuff. One day, my co-workers and I were alone downstairs, and we heard something fly across the store and hit the wall. We went up there, and nothing had been touched at all. Then one day I was sitting at the end of the stairs, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone walk past the staircase. I turned around, and the only other co-worker there was sitting downstairs, right behind me. It freaked me out so bad I went back to my car, grabbed my gun, and cleared the upstairs I had because I was certain I had seen someone, but nobody else was there. One of my co-workers was also working, and the cabinet next to their door had flown wide open, causing items inside to start falling out of it. That cabinet door was one that was really hard to yank, so there was no explanation for it. It was a creepy place for sure. Story 3. I was a telephone operator at the Houston VA. Our office was right next to the morgue. We'd have flickering lights, phone lines answering by themselves, and drawers opening and closing by themselves. Our hand sanitizer and automatic paper towel dispenser were always going off as well, and there was some seriously evil energy drawn down in that basement. Story 4. I am a caretaker manager, and I hear whistling, singing, conversations, running footsteps, adult and child. Doors and things being dropped, coughing, phantom lights. I would be very, very upset if it had stopped. I found it comforting that there is so much more after. My building is 171 years old and was a refuge for a family, orphans, sick people, hundreds of dying people, and indigent people. Also about 1,900 square feet. Edit. I am not afraid to be alone in there at all. This isn't what I do for a living. It is my passion. I've experienced paranormal occurrences since I was 4 years old, just before kindergarten. People are coming out of my closet and things are appearing in my room. I still experience teleconferencing. Our spirits move things, close doors, lock them sometimes, which I find hilarious. My husband might not, but he has the keys. Electronics are manipulated, singing, and tables are dragging along the floor. Just last night, to be specific, I inherited this ability from my father's mother. She was amazing. She spoke a little English, but enough to converse, and we often communicated without words. I guess that alone could be paranormal. According to the dictionary, I would post our link, but I don't want someone complaining that the article on our website has typos. I didn't write it, and it wasn't nice. I unfortunately am featured in many of these. At my age, it's cringy sometimes, but I always tell the truth. We have been all over YouTube, on TV, and in books and in the works, not written by me. Our town is super rich in history, and historical facts contribute to our hauntings. Look up the Beatty Mansion on YouTube. Not everyone believes nor tells the truth, but it's my duty as a historian, manager, and lead investigator and psychic medium for this mansion. I was born and raised in St. Joseph, and I've always known I would land there as a culmination of my work and passion project. Story 5. This was about 20 years ago. I was working at a psychiatric hospital in a lockdown unit for depressed and suicidal people. I don't remember the reason, but I needed to lie down because I wasn't feeling well. It's an empty bed at one of the lockdown rooms. The moment I walked into the room, I began to feel increasingly uncomfortable. At this time in my life, I wasn't very aware of my sensitivities to spiritual things and energy. I was trying to take a short nap, maybe for like 20 minutes. But as the minutes ticked by, anxiety was building, and almost felt like I was going to have a panic attack. I don't have anxiety issues. I've never had a panic attack, but I sure felt like I was about to. I finally got out of there because I couldn't take it anymore. As the evening progressed, I began to think about what exactly had happened. It was one of the first times I realized that I was sensing some energy, or someone's spirit that hadn't moved on. I wish I could go back to that same room today. I would focus on who the person was and try to talk to them about moving on to the next life. Try to give them some love, comfort, and light. I don't feel like it was an entity that was trying to hurt me or scare me even. I got a feeling of panic and confusion. I think they just needed help. I mentioned something to one of the other psych techs that was working with. I told them that I think something really tragic happened in that room, and then I sensed it. They totally believed me. Lots of things can happen in the psych hospitals, especially in suicidal depression units. I bet someone commits suicide in there as well. Story 6. I used to work at the office in this uniform company. One night, working late with the HR rep, I heard the candy dispenser dial being turned nonstop. I went to see who was being the pig. There was no one there and no candy on the floor. I went back to my cubicle. The HR rep asked who was getting so much candy. I told her no one was there. We grabbed our stuff and left quickly. Story 7. I've made a point never to work anywhere that has a reputation for spooks, and this is down to my sister's experiences as a bartender in some of the spookiest inns and pubs across the UK. It made me very determined not to follow in her footsteps. Her worst experience was in Reading. She was opening the bar for evening service. It was closed to the public due to the bar getting ready for the night, so she was, at that moment, the only person in the building. As she was filling up the optics and checking the ice machine was working, etc., she turned around and watched as a man walked from the toilet corridor to then sit before her in the bar stools. She described him as wearing a Stetson hat and being significantly older than the majority of customers that she was used to. However, being polite, she explained that the bar wasn't open yet, and he would need to wait outside before he could come back and order, just like everybody else. As she spoke, she watched this man fade into nothingness right before her eyes, and that was it. He was gone. Now this shows just how many balls my sister has. Rather than running away like she should have done, she poured a small whiskey shot, set it on the counter, and said, "Thanks for visiting." Apparently, she never saw him again, though she often heard a man chatting and moving about when she was alone, sitting at the bar. Maybe he likes to test all the new bartenders in that way. Story 8. A company I worked for purchased an old woolen mill that made garments for the American Civil War and renovated it for offices. Beautiful tall windows, 14-foot ceilings, exposed brick, and just all around lovely place. I would often come in late at night to catch up on work. The portion section I worked in had a 6-foot wall, and on the other side was a hallway that opened into the most significant part of the building, where the work pods were located for different departments. I would turn on the lights in the section and leave the lights off over my own, preferring to stare at my light box in the dark. I could see shadows from the light coming all over the wall all the time. One night I had taken my Jack Russell with me and was listening to Rihanna pretty loudly, concentrating on work. All of a sudden there was this feeling like someone was rushing up behind me, so I turned round to see no one there. The dog got up from his bed and sat at my feet under the desk. Jack Russells are pretty tenacious, and though he was a small dog, not apt to cower like that. We left. I don't think ghosts like Rihanna. This was years ago, and now I work in an old building in a hospital that used to be the dorms where the nun nurses lived. So now we'll see. Story 9. I've mentioned this story before, so I won't get too detailed. But at my former job, several of us stayed late to work to meet deadlines. Everyone complained about the noise upstairs at night. Sounded like a lot of walking and furniture moving. There was no third story, and we were on the second floor. However, there was a severe raccoon infestation up there that we complained about. The building maintenance supervisor told us that it was fancy, modern building. They had a contract with a pest control company, and they came out monthly, sometimes even weekly, if anyone reported seeing bugs. I'm not sure if he was trying to spook us or not, but it worked. Story 10. Everyone jokes about the ghosts at our store. Few have seen things that make them truly believe. I believe wholeheartedly due to what I've seen. I have seen products fly off the shelf, only to land on the other side of the aisle. This has happened multiple times. I've watched carts roll up and stop, and start rolling again down the aisles, as if someone were pushing or blocking them. I was showing a new person how to count the money in the safe, and I left it open with my back to it. A sealed bag of $1,000 $1 bills flew across the office and landed between us. Water bottles move from register to register if you leave them while you're going to the restroom on the break. I could probably list 10 more things I have no doubt were caused by a ghost. Story 11. I worked in a nursing home that was haunted, and I think most probably are. My office was upstairs one morning. I arrived very early and nobody else was upstairs. The home had an old elevator that required holding the button down to operate. I heard the elevator coming up and listening to the open door, but no one came walking down the hall. Anyone who got off the elevator had to walk past my office to reach the other rooms upstairs. So I went out to look, and the elevator door was open, but nobody else was up there. It freaked me out so bad, I ran downstairs to see if anyone was somehow messing with me. Nobody was there, and the only staff were the nurses and the nurses' aides, who were all busy with the residents. Needless to say, I was pretty jumpy when I was up there alone after that. Story 12. I had one experience once. I believe in ghosts, but I have never had a personal experience. I work at 2 gyms, and one of my coworkers saw a black apparition in the back of the janitor's room. I wish I had the picture, but there was an apparent apparition. However, this isn't the only occurrence I've had. One day after my shift, my coworkers and I were in the lot smoking as usual. We always joked there was a ghost in our gym, the second location. One night, we were in my car outside the gym at the entrance, and one of the sliding doors inside the gym opened. Having worked there for 3 years, I'm aware that that specific door does not open automatically, and the sensor's radius is completely insensitive. In fact, you have to literally be directly in front of the door for it to open. We were high and creeped out, but so we left the lot. The next day, I instructed my manager to review the cameras between 2:50 and 3 a.m. and she reported that the footage was unavailable, which she found unusual. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed some of those creepy workplace stories. Hopefully they're all true, but interesting to listen to. Hope you have enjoyed this video. If you do, go check out another one, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.